Chris John for KaijuPop.com, and welcome back to our monthly look at this month in gaming history as we take you back to February of 1984 and 1994. And the first thing we got on tap here is Pinball by Nintendo on the Famicom. Hey, guess what? Lucky Famicom owners this month were able to get access to not just one but two, count them, Famicom releases, which was a rarity at the time, to have such bounties. And yeah, the first one was Pinball on the Famicom, which is the first pinball game on the system, being as how every game at this point on the Famicom was Nintendo produced. There were no third-party publishers at the time, which, wow, I suck at pinball in all its forms. Which is why there were really usually only one release per month, if that, on the Famicom at this stage. So yeah, this is pinball, and home pinball at the time. Pinball still being really popular in the early 80s worldwide, but really not something that translated too well to the home at this stage. Just because there's really too much in terms of maths going on in a pinball game. There's too much in terms of calculating physics and trajectories of these balls, and that meant that most pinball games that were available in the home at this point really sucked. And really, pinball on the Famicom isn't much better. You can see the ball's not really moving particularly convincingly, but it is, I think, in terms of construction, probably the most complicated pinball game that was around at this point. You can see it's got kind of two tiers. There is only one table in the game, but it's a massive dual layered affair, and there's even a mini game which I don't think I'll be able to get to because I suck. But there's even a mini game where you're Mario holding a breakout style bat and breaking away at platforms to save the princess. Princess Pauline at this point, still not Princess Peach. And yeah, as you can see, I suck at pinball. There's two games. I can't remember what Game B. Usually with Famicom games of this type, Game B just meant a harder version of Game A. And that seems to be the case. I think the ball's moving around a little bit quicker, but you can see, yeah, just really not convincing ball movement here, but an indication of sort of Nintendo character. You can see the sort of ice climber penguins at the bottom there, so, and as I said, Mario does make an appearance, but I'm not sure we'll be able to get that far. I mean, there is, you're starting to get the idea that Nintendo are realizing that they have characters that are worth a lot of bank, and it behooves them to exploit those characters. And so yeah, there's the beginnings of that in there. It's not a terrible game, and I think especially when compared to, as I said, to other home pinball games, this was probably the best so far on consoles, at least. So late 1983 on computers, on the Apple, you had Pinball Construction Set, which had just appeared, which, as the name suggested, let people create their own pinball tables. So that was a little bit more open. But yeah, when compared to other games at the time, pretty cool. But really has, well, it shows every one of its 30 years. But let's have a look at the other Famicom or NES release in February 1984. So your other Famicom release for February 1984 was this, A Wild Gunman, a game which we're watching somebody else play here because it uses the Famicom Light Gun, which would become known as the Famicom Zapper. Not something that's particularly friendly with modern TVs, and not something, at least in the Japanese incarnation, that would be particularly friendly with law enforcement. I mean, look at this commercial. That thing is not fucking around, huh? A very realistic gun which you would never see the likes of in the West. So yeah, well, Gunman is a game where you're in a Western setting, as you can see here. It's got some nice cartoonish graphics, and Nintendo really sort of coming into their own as being sort of character game developers, I guess. And yeah, a few different modes, but it's basically built around quick draw gunfights. And yeah, this would kind of put the emphasis on reactions as opposed to, you know, more precise aiming. That would be the job of something like Duck Hunt, which would come soon after, as well as Hogan's Alley. But really well done and a decent fun game, but perhaps better known for its cameo appearance in Back to the Future 2. Use your hands, that's like a baby's toy, rather than, you know, anything else particularly. But Nintendo were incredibly busy in February of 1984, not just producing 2 games for the Famicom, but also a game for the arcades. Punch-Out hit arcades in February 1984 in Japan, and later in the year everywhere else. And if you're familiar with the, you know, more common Famicom version or NES version, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, this looks very, very different. Punch-Out was actually joined in 1984 by a pseudo-sequel, an update called Super Punch-Out, and it's the Super Punch-Out version, or the home version on Super Famicom, that this more closely resembled. And then of course Punch-Out sort of went away a bit and then came back on the Wii with a well-received but, you know, not exactly commercially successful follow-up. So the gimmick with Punch-Out here was it was actually a 2-screen arcade game, almost like a giant, huge DS or Wii U, I suppose. The top monitor here, it's 2 monitors stacked on top of one another, and the top monitor shows stats, as you can see, and then the bottom screen showing the actual gameplay. But yeah, even though the home version would have to, by technical constraints, look very, very different to what we're seeing here, it was, yeah, I mean, it was pretty much the same gameplay-wise, more a puzzle game than than an actual action fighting game. It was more about looking at tells that your opponent would have. And when they're sort of juking and driving and about to throw a punch, you sort of sneak in a counter and get your licks in. But yeah, again, just as you can see from an art direction standpoint here, granted everybody in the game were racial stereotypes, terrible racial stereotypes. But you know, I mean, they showed a lot of character in these sprites, and Nintendo really coming into their own from an art direction here. And from a technical standpoint, pretty technically impressive for a 1984 arcade game, especially with all of this commentary that you can hear in the background, even though it's pretty repetitive. Body blow, body blow, body blow. You know, it had sort of play-by-play commentary in speech was pretty remarkable. So let's move on up and leave Glass Joe and Bald Bull behind and take a look at February 1994. Listeners, viewers, readers, whatever, as I will make 3 controversial statements. The first is as follows. Mega Man was just as raped as any other character-based, I don't know, gimmick in the 80s and 90s, and isn't the savior of the industry that people think he is. In fact, this is the first Mega Man's Soccer is the first of 3, actually I think 4 Mega Man games to be released in 1994 across various formats. Yeah, Mega Man Soccer the first came out a little bit later, this Mega Man Soccer, but Rockman Soccer came out in February 94. And, well, I mean, it was a cash-in on the World Cup, which was about to happen, with a familiar character, I guess. And, yeah, this follows on from there being 6, I think, Mega Man games in the last 6 years, plus some Game Boy remixes as well. So, yeah, I mean, he was hardly known at this point. But I mean, the Mega Man games are hardly known at this point for their stunning creativity, and his kind of the Mega Man series has kind of been oddly sort of put behind rose-tinted spectacles as being this wonderfully creative thing, and not really. I mean, none of these games were bad, but I mean, they were, they were absolutely humped and milk dry. They were the Call of Duty of their day. But yeah, we're going to play soccer, I suppose, with Mega Man, or football anyway. Let's start with Cutman. Oh, terrible. It's early in the morning. Cutman here. So you get a nice little Mega Man style intro. So you have these. You get to choose the usual sort of array of formations, I suppose. We'll go with the sweeper there, and then yeah, you have a field full of Mega Mans in this form anyway. So it's not kidding around when it says Mega Man Soccer. This is just Mega Man playing soccer. Well, not quite, because yeah, I know I was playing around with the exhibition mode before, and there you could choose. You could have an all Mega Man attack and then an all Rockman midfield or whatever. I pressed the wrong button there. I have said I messed around with the exhibition. It was just to figure out what the controls were, and even then I'm not sure. So yeah, wow, Cutman you cut me there. Oof. You've played this before countless times. It's one of those zany, gimmicky soccer games, football games. Sorry, I'm terrible. I've been living in Japan too long. But yeah, there's not a referee, and you have a go. There's super shots. I don't know how to do them, and I'm not about to look up online to find out how to do them. And slide tackle, which is incredibly ineffective. I think I'm going to get wildly humped here, so I'm just going to run my goalkeeper out. Oh, that was a poor choice. Yeah, he can do that. Can cut, man. He can cut. He can cut shit up. I have no idea how I do that. It's no sort of special move meter or anything, so presumably I can do it anytime I want. If I could, I don't know. There's a weird thing as well. I don't know whether this is just a bug in what I'm playing here, but it seems like when I kick the ball in the air, the clock stops. Seriously, it was 4:09 there for a good 5 seconds, and it's also 5-minute halves. So yeah, I mean, really, quite frankly, stitch this. It's not very good. So let's move on to probably something better that came out in February 1994. If you're not familiar with the Amiga scene in the mid-90s, you might be thinking, why are you playing a game I've never heard of as an example of February 1994's offerings? And if you were familiar with the Amiga scene in the mid-90s, you might be thinking, why are you choosing one of the worst games of all time as an example of what was released in February 1994? Well, yeah, Dangerous Streets, as well, mercifully this player select screen is in silence, so we don't have to listen to the terrible music. This is the Amiga 1200 version, but, which came out a little bit later, so I'm cheating a bit just for easiness. Top model, really? Wow. Yeah, but this originally came out. What the fuck? Oh my goodness. Oh, jeez. This originally came out on the Amiga CD32, where Commodore, in their about to go out of business wisdom, made this the lead pack-in game for their CD32 console that had just launched the prior autumn. Seriously, you're about to see what was the game that was packed in with CD32 consoles. The key example, alongside Oscar, which was a crap platformer, and Diggers, which was a kind of crap puzzle game, but at least better than the other two. Wait for it. This this. Just like what's going on? Just look at it for a start. Look, I honestly I have no idea what I'm doing here. I mean, this is cashing in on Street Fighter, to be fair, but look at Street Fighter, and then look at the fact that Virtua Fighter had come out in December, and Tekken was about to come out right afterwards. And I won there, but I'm not exactly sure how. And yeah, I mean, button mashing isn't the word, obviously. You know, I mean, granted, okay, I'm playing this with a one-button setup instead of a CD32 controller, but this wouldn't be any better. Did I win there? What happened? He turned into a ball? What? Yeah, I mean, Flair, who made this, were well known, not like their namesake Rick, they were well known for producing utter shit. And yeah, well, this is no different. Insert this too. You know what? I kind of think I won't. Let's move quickly on. You see, I had an ulterior motive for putting Dangerous Streets in there, and that's just really to show the contrast between that and a February 1994 arcade release in Japan, at least, Daytona, USA from Sega. And that contrast is just the different approaches to bringing out launch games and hyping key launch games for consoles. Both Sony and Sega had revealed their respective new consoles just the month prior at CES. Sony with the PlayStation, obviously, and Sega with their Saturn. And they were both keen to put emphasis on the major exclusives that they had, both of them racing games. And so Sony had courted Namco to bring Ridge Racer to their PlayStation as an exclusive, and Sega obviously were already producing Daytona USA for the arcade, and they were going to bring it to the Saturn as an exclusive. So, I mean, despite the fact that obviously, yes, very key, very massive, major differences in terms of hardware performance and just horsepower, so to speak, but compare this to Dangerous Streets, which were what Commodore was getting so far behind to sell CD32s. Just a bizarre sort of thought process that was going on at Commodore at the time. Honestly, their thinking was that if we package bad games with a system, it will inspire people to go out and buy more games instead of keeping the ones that they had packaged with their hardware. And Sega and Sony both felt that they didn't need to package games with their system. They can just put it out separately and then have pretty great games or pretty major arcade conversions that were hardware exclusives. Now, the Saturn version of Daytona USA wasn't quite up to par compared to the arcade version, but obviously leaps and bounds to what we just saw with what was going on with other less famous consoles. But you know what, I think we'll save the major details for Daytona USA for November 1994 and the launch of the Saturn. Right, viewers, you may recall that I was going to make 3 controversial statements in this video. Controversial statement number 2, Sonic 3 is the best Sonic game. I don't care what any of you think. Controversial statement number 3, there are no really good Sonic games. Get over yourselves. This wasn't a franchise that was really good in 2D and then suddenly became utter shite in 3D. Sonic at best was kind of mediocre. It's always been this 2D platformer that focused on speed but was also intent on killing your momentum at every turn. It's not a great series of games, in my opinion. So you can all go ahead and unsubscribe now and leave me hate mail. Man, that's an ugly title screen though, isn't it? I kind of think in the mid-90s people are obsessed with kind of CG renders even in, Mega Drive and SNES games that couldn't handle it. See also to an extent Donkey Kong Country, which really doesn't age well graphically. But yeah, it looks terrible. So Sonic 3, the big addition here was that not only could you play as Sonic or Tails, or Sonic and Tails, as you could before in Sonic 2, but also that you had save slots. This was the first Sonic game with a battery backup in it, and you could have, wow, a massive 6 saves going at the same time. So, that was the thing. Or you could just not save for whatever reason. It's weird. So let's go ahead. The other thing with Sonic 3 is that it's kind of more... It's got more of a story emphasis. There's cutscenes in it, like here's Super Sonic running along, and there pops Knuckles, the echidna. So this was just the start of the Sonic cast getting ridiculously crowded, and he's popped off with all the Chaos Emeralds, putting me back as regular Sonic. Yeah, and we're off. So it's kind of interesting how it kind of bakes. There's, it's hardly the most complicated of stories, but it's baking some story elements into things, into the gameplay to an extent there. And we're off. And I realize, okay, most people's options for me getting over my distaste for Sonic will be, oh, stop being shit at it. But like, I'm sorry already. I'm sorry. I'm not that bad at games. If you watch these videos, you find out that I am pretty bad at games, for fuck's sake. But in a game that's about speed, why do you do that? Why do that? Why put at the end of a run-up a spring that will bounce you back in the opposite position? It's not designed to boost challenge in any way. That's designed just to fucking infuriate and kill all the momentum you had. And, it's always, because Sonic levels were always quite big, especially in comparison to Mario, I think, even though, Mario level is very large and full of secrets. Sonic was always about, oh, hey, there's multiple paths through each section, which is interesting. It's just that, really your kind of means for getting there is kind of random in a way. So there's another story that, Robotnik's raising the ground here. And he is Robotnik, he's not Eggman. I don't care, even though we're based in Japan, he is Robotnik and not Eggman. I don't know. I don't have fun with Sonic. It's going to be like 20 minutes of complaining. But you see, these levels are really large, and I could have gone over the top there, but I've decided to go underwater. It's reasonably non-linear design for a super linear genre. And of course music. This was the music that urban legend says that Michael Jackson had a big hand in. God, that was terrible, wasn't it? Like, even for me being shit at Sonic and in my Sonic hate spread, that was terrible play. So yeah, there's also a fire attack. I thought that was a shield for a second, not just a fireball attacky thing. So Sonic can do a few more things, but basically, I think kind of a victory for, Sonic's always been kind of a victory for a really simple design, even with even with 3 buttons on the Mega Drive controller, you only ever needed 1 with Sonic, and that's kind of, it's interesting in a way. It's sort of, for Sonic being modern at the time, it was an odd sort of throwback to only have one button controls. And yeah, the other thing, though, I suppose they're going for immersion in a sense. You know, there's no break here to go, hey, off you go into the next level. It's just, yeah, here we go. Also, I think Sonic and Knuckles had the best. I fucked this up already. Had the shit, that was terrible. It had the best minigame there. That sort of pseudo 3D thing where you're supposed to go through all the blue dots and avoid the red ones, and then collect coins and get the Chaos Emerald at the end. Clearly, I'm just as shit as that at that as I am the rest of the game. But oh, that's right. But yeah, it's fucking hell. I was supposed to go down there, but you sent me all the way back. You stupid game. Ugh. Rather than focusing on having however many coins at the checkpoint in Sonic 3, the entrances to those sequel levels weren't actually secrets. So that's kind of, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, this isn't a game. I think Sonic 3 gets a lot of special revulsion from people, even from Sonic fans, for whatever reason. As I said, I think it's the best of all the Sonic games. There's even a bit of puzzle set. There you go. But yeah, I think probably part of it is that this first level looks absolutely shit. You know? I mean, just graphically. I know it's okay. You know, this forest is being burned. Probably for some story reason that I don't care about. Yeah, this is stupid! Why would you do that? Just why? What purpose does that solve? To piggyback the other way? So, I don't know. But yeah, these sort of flame effects and Sonic meets Apocalypse Now stuff that's going on, it really doesn't look good. Let's go. That was really stupid. I was supposed to go for the blue things, aren't I? Not the red ones. Oh well. Efficiency. Oh, back up this way, isn't it? Well, where was I going? Because this can't be right. Thrown off by the revolution in platforming gameplay there. I have to say, sometimes in Sonic, run left instead of right. Yeah. But I mean, in general, I kind of like, you know, and I realized that, okay, it's at some point me continuing to play Sonic when I hate Sonic isn't really doing anybody any favors. But I do kind of like the relative openness in Sonic 3. You know, I like some of the music. I like, you know, I like the stuff that it was doing in a weird way with story in a kind of very limited sense. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to hate a Sonic game, it doesn't make much sense to me that it should be this one. When there's plenty of others to hate on. But perhaps that's it. Perhaps I like the games that Sonic fans hate and hate the Sonic games Sonic fans love. Sonic CD, for instance, is the worst 2D Sonic game, if you ask me. I like this bit. This is practically the, you know, this thing going along massive set pieces. This is practically, you know, the massive epic first-person shooter of the day. See how Tails is It's dying at every turn because the AI is crap. Tears you up. 4 layers of parallax as well. Crap. Yeah. You know what? Should we try that one more time? Let's at least get past Rockman. I think I remember something like, wasn't this the Sonic where Sonic changed his look slightly and then everybody got upset about that as well? I think, again, of all the things to be upset about, a slightly different looking Sonic shouldn't be one of them. Right. Wait for after the bridge to blow. There we go. Ah, crap. Yep. I hate a game that I shit at. Yep, the end. I think we'll move on from that. So Sonic 3 is certainly a landmark release, even if it's something that I despise. But that's February 1994 in a nutshell, and February 1984. For more this month in gaming history, a full written feature covering 1984, 94, 2004, with plenty more news bits that we didn't talk about here. Head on over to kaijupop.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.